Hey guys, gameboy3800 here, once again back in Beam. Today we're doing another gameboy3800 meme pack here update. And today we got a new skin and some new parts to take a look at. We got Dirty Dudes Extreme. And if you're not a long-time member of the streams, this is a reference to when somebody on stream just randomly asked, "Hey, do you know what DDE stands for?" And just off the top of my head, I said Dirty Dudes Extreme. And it's stuck around ever since. And just so we know, I knew it was Daily Driven Exotics, I was just messing with them. Anyways, we got the meme truck here. We have, yes, the Dort on the hood. Let's run it. It's a standard truck for now. We do have some parts to add to it though. Very nice. Alright, let's take a look at the parts menu. We've got two things to add to it. We've got... No, one thing's already added. We've got a new Supercharger. It's not the 1071, this is the 871 twin screw. Now, to show what the twin screw does, we first need to pull up the torque curve meter. And maybe the engine dynamometer too. So, torque curve, we'll just throw this over here. And the engine dynamometer in the top left. For here we see with the standard Supercharger, this is, we're making 1317 horsepower and 1385 foot-pounds of torque. That's because I'm running less RPM on this engine. I can go ahead and just put it back to normal so that we can see a like for like. 8,000, that's the normal RPM limit. Oh. Yep, I'm running way less boost, so let's just hit reset on this tune. Here we can now see 1500 horsepower, 1538 foot-pounds of torque. And if we drive like this, we'll see in the top left the wheel horsepower. That is about 1500, just about. It's a 1-to-1 ratio, pretty much. Maybe like 1400 horsepower to the wheels, 1350, between 1350 and 1500 horsepower gets to the wheels. We're able to use all of the engine. And now we can put on the twin screw superchargers to see what that does to the torque curve in the top right. Twin screw, what this does is it should give us more horsepower at the expense of some torque. So yep, almost 1800 horsepower, but we lost 200 or so foot-pounds of torque. It's a little bit of a trade-off. You get a little bit less get up and go down low, but you do have more wheel speed at higher RPMs. It is more effective at higher RPMs. As you can see with the torque curve in the top right, the more we rev, the higher it goes up. While on the normal Supercharger, it goes up and it goes down a little bit. As we get higher up in the rev range, it gets less efficient. Here though, it gets more efficient. So that's what's up. The twin screw's got a little bit different of a sound too, a little bit louder. And the difference between the regular root Supercharger that's always been on it is that it uses like big circular lobes, and they can sometimes have a bit of a twist to make them act like screws, but now with twin screw it has real giant screws in the Supercharger to build more pressure but they're more effective at higher RPM. So that's what you're seeing here. I tried to get it to be balanced so that it's not too overpowered. You lose some download torque and acceleration, but you gain some better wheel speed in the high end. And now let's go look at the next thing, and this is huge. Are you guys ready for this? If we scroll down past the tires, that's right, we now have something below the tires. We have a fully tunable torque converter. Now what this does is it lets you control how much power gets down to the ground. So we have the coupling ratio, the diameter of the thing, the stiffness, the lockup, and the stall ratio. And the lockup is the level at which it actually starts engaging, how much torque from the engine needs to be applied for it to lock up and get you to start moving. We have stall ratio, that keeps you from stalling. We have stiffness, that's how aggressive it puts down the power. The diameter, how easy or hard it is to keep the revs up. And coupling AV ratio, I actually don't know what that does, but I included it anyways. And I will go over the things that give you the most amount of, I guess, noticeability. We will start off with a converter stiffness. If we go from 10 to 30, or 29.9, let's see what that does to our wheel horsepower. You see, it doesn't change our engine horsepower at all. The torque curve app remains just completely the same. But now, you see there, we're making 1800 wheel horsepower, maybe even 1900 wheel horsepower. And that's pretty insane. There is a trade-off though. We now take much longer to build up revs, even with this stronger supercharger. So you really gotta pay attention. And as well, the stiffer you make the torque converter as a whole, because what the stiffness does is it allows some play from the wheels to the engine, like in the axles and the drive shaft. It allows a little bit of play so that you can have some wiggle room and durability. The stiffer you make this, sure, you can be able to put down more power to the wheels, even more than the engine is putting out, because we're dynamically converting the torque. What happens is the wheels can become more susceptible to off-axis hits and pop tires or break a wheel off completely, because there's less wiggle room. Now the next biggest change, or changing thing, is the diameter. What this does is it changes how the RPMs handle the conversion. So let's go ahead and shrink this down to as low as it can go, just so that you can see an extreme case, and then we'll slide it the other way to show another extreme case. So now with the torque converter lower, it's actually easier to spin the wheels. It is easier to spin the wheels. You can see we're a little bit down on torque, a little bit down on power, and we are much less stable. And I think that was the car grabbing the tire. That wasn't anything to do with the stiffness. So a smaller torque converter lets you build up revs faster, but you seem to lose a bit of speed. And of course, you're going to be at higher RPMs for more often, so you will overheat faster. So now let's move it the other way. You will probably like this. If we move it all the way to the other side, to increase the diameter almost to double that what it was when we started. Watch the RPMs. You can see it's much more difficult to build up revs, but we get much higher peak wheel horsepower. And we get some speed as well. But you can see if you're not on full boost or full RPM, you are going to have a hard time accelerating. But this will give you the greatest amount of speed, but just like how the smaller torque converter size makes you work the engine harder RPM-wise. With the size all the way up, it works the engine harder torque-wise. So it's still going to work the engine hard. You could still risk overheating easier. So it's a trade-off. You need to see how much you want to gain, but you need to learn how much you're going to lose as well. And just for funsies, let's go ahead, crank it all the way up. Everything as high as it can go. Let's see. Let's see how this engine performs now. With everything high, we are able to maintain higher RPMs despite having a higher torque converter size, or bigger torque converter size. And you can see our wheel horsepower, like peak, is way off the charts completely. It's a shame you can't really see it. But look at our engine torque. Our torque has actually seemingly gone down. Our engine flywheel torque is the black bar on the left. That's only reaching 1500 when it should be way higher. But we're having to work the engine in a much different way. And you can see we had to get used to driving like this. This is not a drop-in replacement. You cannot just run every tune like this. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but this torque converter option, Gearbox, is available on all engines. So it's going to be available on the Merlin, it's going to be available on the Ford, it's even available on the Blaze Insane engine if you have the Blaze pack installed. So you're free to tune it however you like. For BeamNG or Parsec competitions, it's going to be a lot more interesting to see what kind of tunes people run. Because before, you had the Ford engine or the Merlin engine, but they were pretty much stock. Same supercharger, either like stock boost or more boost, no real difference. Here, you have a supercharger that can give you more horsepower but less torque, and you can tune the torque converter to give you more engine speed or more engine torque. But you gotta choose which one is which. If you try to run it all at once, you get something like this, where it's kind of a master of none, you know? Yeah, we're fast, but we've got too much wheel speed, and we don't have the torque to better match it. It's up to you to play around with what all these settings can do for your tunes, if it's something you even want to play with. It's completely optional, all these parts. They do not replace anything, they do not interfere with anything. So if you want to keep everything normal with the standard supercharger and the standard gearboxes, then you can. I'm trying to make the pack as compatible as possible, but also give as many options for tuning as possible. And like I said, I am working on more engine add-ons. Some have been requested. For instance, this whole torque converter and rev limiter thing was actually brought up by the game. He's been a long-time member of the community, and he said he was having some problem shifting. And with these two things combined, the new gearbox, the torque converter, and I guess the rev limiter too, it should help with like shifting or people who find it hard to shift, or just want to mess around with tunes. That will be about it though. If you guys enjoyed this gameboy3800 meme pack update, then please do go ahead and leave a like, favorite, comment, share, and of course don't forget to get dirty as well. I'll see you all in the future. Goodbye.